We're back, baby. Welcome back to another episode of Addicted to Quitting, where we are focusing on quitting the habits that no longer serve us so we can elevate your health, your habits, and your happiness. I am your host. My name is Gentry. I'm a divorced mom to 4 boys. And on my most recent episode, I told you guys that I have taken a pause on my engagement with my partner, and we are deciding to take a big step backwards in a relationship. So we're planning on moving in together, but we're actually deciding to not move in together yet. Take a little bit more time to build our relationship before we discuss coming back together. So in this episode, I want to talk about things that I've learned about myself in this process of taking a step back. So if you would like to learn how to work on yourself, on your codependency, on your deflection tools, maybe you have the same coping mechanisms that I have, then stick around because this episode is for you. Welcome back to another episode. I'm excited about this episode, and this is going to be an educational one, and this is going to be a vulnerable one because I'm going to be sharing things that I do in my relationships that I know other people are doing. So I'm going to just pull back the curtain. And the last episode, I feel like I talked a little bit more about my partner and what he was doing, and I'm like, you know what, even in that, I'm deflecting off of what I need to be doing because you know what, women, we're not perfect. This is something that I'm having to say, which I'm not comfortable saying because I like to think that I am absolutely perfect at everything that I'm doing. But really, some of the things that I do are manipulative, unhealthy, and on a subconscious level. And I think that we need to talk about this because I think people hate to say that they're being manipulative. They think like, oh, you're a narcissist, or like we just don't want to have any of that light. But we need to be honest. And one of the biggest things that I do to manipulate situations that are uncomfortable for me is I cry. And hello, I hope that just rang a bell in some women's lives because women, we do this all the time. We find ourselves in uncomfortable situations, and a way for us to control and manipulate the situation, we use our emotional tears. Are the feelings that you're feeling real? Are the feelings that you're feeling valid in that moment? Yes. I 100% believe that the feelings that we have, the emotions that we have in that moment are very real and are very valid. But I also believe that on a subconscious level, we have learned that we can kind of manipulate the situation if we use our tears. So something that I've learned about myself is that I deflect with my emotions. It's a way for me to be so caved in, so vulnerable, so emotional that I'm not in the capacity to have a conversation. So like as soon as I get too uncomfortable in conversations, as soon as I get too uncomfortable with having to look at myself, I just collapse into a puddle of tears. And again, do I think that these are things that we do as a very, very intentional manipulation scale? No, I don't think, unless like you're extremely narcissistic or you're extremely toxic and you know that these things work and so that's what you do. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is probably hundreds and thousands of women out there that are subconsciously, they've learned that if they cry, they kind of can like deflect from the actual things that are going on. It's a way for them to like kind of protect themselves from having to actually deal with the things that are going on. And this is something that I'm learning about myself. Like I am a crier. I am a crier. I don't know if you guys knew this already, because if you watch me on social media, there's times when I'm frustrated crying in my stories. And so it is a way for me to release my emotions. It is a way for me, like when I'm overwhelmed or stressed out, like I'm not saying crying is a bad thing. I'm just saying that if we continuously use crying as a coping mechanism to deflect from solving the problems, then it's becoming an unhealthy cycle. And that is where I found myself, and I have found myself in relationships in the past, is I would cry about things and then was so devastated that they didn't make changes in their behavior or what they were doing or how they were doing or how they were showing up for me or whatever. They didn't make the changes that I was pleading for while crying, and then it became even more of a personal attack. When really, we can learn how to just set healthy boundaries without having to manipulate with tears. We can learn how to just set healthy expectations without having to manipulate with tears. We can learn how to believe in ourselves that we're worthy without trying to convince somebody that by manipulation with tears. So I want to encourage women in particular. I'm not saying that men don't cry for the same reason, because I have seen men cry for the same reason of like trying to manipulate the situation, trying to control the situation, trying to embark like empathy for the situation. And again, I don't think that everybody that cries is this like narcissistic, toxic person, but I do think that it can become a toxic cycle. I do think that subconsciously our body learns that it's a way to kind of escape the situation. And so how can we practice healthier boundaries with ourselves and with other people, that we don't have to be in a state of this emotional breakdown before we are pleading for ourselves, or before we are trying to like plead for somebody to act a certain way. I don't have to use my tears. Like, I don't have to use my tears. And I think that this is something that I need to work on, and something that I wanted to bring to light. So, because I know other women are probably doing the same thing. So what can we do instead? One, we can be in a good, strong sense of emotional security before we have hard conversations. And I think the longer we can stay in a good, solid sense of emotional security during that conversation, the more successful those conversations are going to be. And it won't be perfect at the beginning. The same way that men can generally, these are general, and then I'm just, people are gonna be like, oh, women go to anger too, or men go to tears too. My history, what I know, what I've seen is that men typically go to anger or being loud or whatever to avoid uncomfortable situations. Women go to tears. Again, it's just some sort of emotional response. So the longer we can have conversations not in these heightened states of emotions, the more successful we're going to be in our relationships. But that's going to take time to unlearn that deep-rooted subconscious response to just go into a puddle of tears, or to go into a bit of rage, or to go into like, I'm checking out, I'm just walking away. Like, if we have to have like reps and reps and reps. And I talked about this in the last episode. Like, the more reps we have, the more conversations we have, the more like we needed more reps in our relationship to get to a place of that stability. And we just didn't have enough reps in there. And I'm owning my part in that, of like being in a deflecting emotional being, as a way to kind of avoid the hard conversation, avoid having to look at my own stuff, avoid having to answer the questions. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, how dare you? I'm this single mom and I'm working so hard, which is true. And all those emotions are true. And the overwhelm is true. But the tears didn't help. The tears didn't solve shit. So we have to unlearn this behavior, because it actually does start to be a manipulative, toxic behavior. And I do see women do this a lot, of like, if I go into tears, I can manipulate him to do what I want. If I go into tears, I can make him feel bad. And if I can make him feel bad, then he'll respond. And the same thing, like with men saying things or doing things or putting women down, or vice versa, men and women. Like, we go into, if we can make them feel bad, if we can make them feel guilty, if we can make them feel sad for us, if we can embark some sort of emotion on them, then they will respond to us how we want. Again, I'm not saying every single woman that is doing this intentionally. This is something that is probably a deep rooted childhood issue that they learned that these behaviors work to get what you want. So it's very, very subconscious, but we need to start bringing consciousness to it. Like, the only way that you're going to undo some of these bad habits is to bring consciousness to it. So really look at yourself. Are you doing these types of things? Are you engaging in these types of behaviors? Are you using your tears as a tool to get what you want, to make people feel bad for you, to deflect from the uncomfortableness of the situation? Because if you are, you might be a little bit toxic. Sorry to break it to you, but it's okay. We're here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to help you get through some of these things. But something that I've learned is that in this coping mechanism of deflecting with tears is the control of the other partner is a very codependent cycle that I want to break. So what I mean by that is that I want to not need my partner's approval, not need my partner's validation, not need my partner's like stamp of I'm good enough, of worthiness, so that I can feel good about myself. And I think that the coping mechanism and the learned behavior and the toxic behavior of using tears is so much deeply rooted into just wanting to be loved and just wanting to be enough, just wanting to feel worthy, and just wanting to feel lovable. And I think that comes from a very codependent energy. I think it comes from a very like take care of me energy, like this poor little, like really in the depths of it, as I've said, is like this is your inner child, like your baby you just like screaming like, please somebody love me, please somebody take care of me, please somebody support me, please somebody like hold me and protect me, like please please, like it's like a begging energy. um and and so have empathy for yourself on that, which I'm actually going to talk about that in a second. That's going to be my last part of this, is like the empathy and grace that you need to have for yourself. But it comes from this codependent energy. Like we want that partnership, and we want to feel loved, and we want to feel worthy. We want to feel good enough and all these things. And so it's really, really important for you to know that you are enough without that person, that you are enough without that relationship, that you are capable on your own. Do we want to do it on our own? Is it hard on our own? Absolutely. And I'm actually going to talk about that in a little bit too, because that's a huge driving factor for a lot of women and single moms in particularly, of like, man, it's just heavy. Like you're like what are those Gumby or Gumbo, like where there's arms stretched out and there's all this weight on those arms and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy. um, and so like we want that, we crave that take care of me energy. But we have to have healthy boundaries and healthy coping mechanisms to get through that. So something that I do, or something that I'm working on doing to overcome that codependency, to overcome that take care of me energy that I crave, is that I tell myself I am safe. And I actually just saw on social not too long ago, Aubrey, shout out to Aubrey if she's listening to this. And I actually talked about this in a couple episodes back, but she was saying that she heard another parent at the grocery store and the child was having a meltdown. And while the child was having a meltdown, she said, like the dad said, you are safe. You are safe. Like he didn't say you're okay. He didn't say stop crying. He just said, you're safe. You're safe. And so much of that, the tears and the anger and the emotions and those heightened states and that craving for connection and that codependency energy comes from a lack of feeling safe and secure. And so I have been trying to remind myself that I am safe. I'm safe. I am safe. And this is something that women, in particularly, because we aren't the protectors, we aren't the providers. And if you're going to tell me that men and women are equals, I love you, but I don't believe in that. I don't think that's true. We were made differently. We have different strengths, we have different weaknesses. And equally, when we equally have strengths and weaknesses, but are we equal? Absolutely not. Like there's things that men can do better than women. There's things that women can do that are better than men. And that is just, I believe that. I believe that, and that's why our partnerships are such a good synergy, because his strengths, my strengths, we work well together, right? Like that's why we crave partnering up, because he has things that I can do anything he can do, but I can't do anything he can do better. Like I wouldn't automatically do things better. I would have to work a lot harder to do some of the things he does because it just isn't instinctively in me. The same way he can do everything that I do, but he would have to work harder to do some of the things that I do because it doesn't instinctively come to him. Like, not that we can't do the same things, but we instinctively, we biologically, we're made differently. So let's stop trying to, like, the women empowerment, sometimes I'm like, you're going too far. Like, someone like, I want to be strong, I want to be treated fairly, but I don't want to be on the same capacity of men on all boards. So it's like, there's things that they can do that are better. Anyways, though, that was a sidetrack. So codependency, how do we break this codependency? Like I said, for women, we tend to struggle with that feeling of safety and security because that's not an innate part of our biology. Men have that like protect and provide energy. So I have to remind myself that I'm safe. And the more that I remind myself that I'm safe, like, okay, I'm safe financially. I'm safe in this house. I'm safe in my emotions. I'm safe in my business. I'm safe in my relationships. I'm safe. And when I remind myself that I'm safe, it does bring this level of peace over me where it's like, okay, I don't have to be in panic mode. I don't have to hurry and fill the void of that protector and provider. Like, I'm good, I'm safe, I'm okay. And this practice of saying that I'm safe in this affirmation has really helped me set better boundaries with myself and what I'm willing to do for other people. Because when we're in this codependent, take care of me energy, what tends to happen, or what has happened in my situation, is the people pleasing. So I think that both of my partner and I, which I don't want to talk about him a bunch, but we did get kind of sucked into the people pleasing realm. And what happens with people pleasing is then you start going into a burnout. So I struggle as a divorced mom in my now late 30s. Oh, barely. We're at 36. I have 4 kids. I live in a really small town. I struggle feeling worthy of a true relationship and a true partnership. I struggle feeling good enough. I struggle wondering if I would have time. Like, I want to give everybody that is in my life the utmost respect and time and energy that I possibly can. But to be able to give my kids the energy they deserve, to be able to give myself the energy I deserve, to be able to give my partner the energy they deserve, to be able to give my business the energy they deserve, to be able to give my house the energy, my maintenance, the things I need to do for maintenance for the house, the everything. If I like to give everything that I care about the energy that it deserves, there's just no way. I just didn't think about that for a second. I'm like, can I? No, I can't. I truly can't. And that's really, really hard. And I have a lot of guilt actually. Like, it was even hard to even like say that. Like, I have a lot of guilt, and I want to give everybody the energy they deserve. So what happens is I can't not give my kids energy, and I can't not make money and not give my business energy, which I love doing that. That's like something that actually lights my soul on fire. I love working with my clients. I love working with my communities. I love selling merch, you guys. I love all of that. I love the business aspect because I know that I'm spreading a message of sobriety, and just like growth and personal development and all these things. So I love giving energy to that. And I also need to give energy to that to continue to support my family. And I need to give energy to my kids because I'm like legally responsible for these humans to keep them alive. And I need to give energy to myself to be able to manage all that. But what happens is that when I add on to that, when I add relationships, what tends to happen is the one that gets removed is myself. So it's like, okay, I have to give my kids all what they need. I have to give the business what it needs, and I have to give my partner what they need. I don't have time to give myself as much. So I'll just not, and everything will continue to work. And it never does. It never continues to work smoothly. I always hit a point of burnout. I always hit a point of overwhelm. And so I'm having to learn how to manage all the things and believe that I am worthy of a relationship and a good partnership and a true partnership without making them my world. Like, I struggle with that. Like, I'm like, would you even want to be with me? Would you even truly want to be in this with me if I wasn't prioritizing you as much as I have? If I wasn't prioritizing your needs, if I wasn't always staying pleasant, like, I want to always be happy for them. I want to always be like positive, good energy. I want to always, okay, like, I give them a lot because I don't believe that I'm worthy if I don't. And that is something that I'm in counseling for, working on. Because I can't give 4 kids, a partner, their 2 kids, my business, and myself all the same energy. Like, there's not enough time in the day. There's not enough energy to go around. And so it's like, sometimes these people get my energy. Sometimes this gets my energy. It's like very, very difficult. And I think that, believing that I'm worthy of a partnership when I know that this is kind of the system I'm in, or the cycles that I'm in, or this is the reality, right? Like, mom, 4 kids, busy, trying to take care of yourself, like all these things. It's like, would you want to be in this life with me and actually help me raise my kids? Like, I don't want to put the burden of raising my kids on anyone else. I don't want to put the burden of the house on anyone else. I don't want to put, like, I'm very guilty of the burdens that I have. And, um, and this isn't anybody making me feel guilty. I want to just lay that out there too. Like, nobody's made me feel guilty about the burdens that I carry. But I feel very guilty for the burdens that I carry. I feel very guilty for, um, the obstacles that people have to jump through to be in relationships with me. And so I tend to hide those obstacles. I tend to not talk about the stress I have financially. I tend to not talk about the stress I have with the house. I tend to not talk about the stress that I have with the kids, because I don't want them to see that, because if they saw it, they probably wouldn't want to actually sign up to be with me. And it's something I need to work on. That, like, here's me, here's my obstacles, here's what I have. Do you still want to do this? Because I don't think that I would sign up for somebody that has what I have on my plate. But I also have to have affirmations and confirmations with myself that I'm safe no matter what. I'm safe no matter what. I'll always be able to provide. I always will be able to take care of my kids. I'll always be able to figure it out. And is it going to be perfectly all the time? Absolutely not. And let's get into that. Actually, let's go. That's my next point, is that in this cycle of taking a step back, I've been working on, having a lot of grace with myself, that my house isn't going to be perfect. We're not going to we're not going to have things that we always want, or like, it's just like, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And somebody had messaged me actually after they listened to the last episode, and they were like, okay, can we talk about that though? Like, how hard it is to carry it alone. And I think that anger about me, how hard it is to carry it alone, has been very present in the last couple weeks. And not necessarily angry at my partner, because we decided this and I was very comfortable with the decision to take a step back. Like, I'm super proud of what he's doing on his own. I'm proud of the work that I'm doing on my own, kind of. Like I said, I'm like reluctant to like look at these things and like, but I'm angry because I don't want to have to do it alone, but I also don't want to pass my burdens on to anyone else. And something that I'm working on about doing it alone is that I have to have grace with myself, that I was not meant to do this. Men or women, again, I know men are raising their kids alone, or raising their kids as sole, and I'm not alone. Sorry, I shouldn't even say that. Like, I have co-parents, so they go with their dad every other weekend. But um, I'm giving myself a lot of grace, because literally, like, just this week, I'm driving down the road, and you know, like those memes or like reels where like the math is all happening and like there's a bunch of noise and it's like there's like zooming in on them. That's how it feels a lot of times. Like, oh, I got to make a doctor's appointment for him. I need to get a haircut for him. Oh shoot, I never finished filling out that form. Oh, my credit card got hacked, and so I need to I got to cancel all those auto payments and fix that. I got like, oh, I forgot to change over the laundry. I need to do, like, it's just like all these things are happening at once, and it's just like, and then like I just like, it's like dollar signs and like of stress and like angry, and like I'm like, all these is so overwhelming. It is so freaking overwhelming. And the problem is that if I get caught in that, like where I'm like just pinging things as I'm driving down the road, or pinging things about like all the things I'm not doing, then I'm going to fall into like a dark depression, and very, very like, I'm going to get overwhelmed. And so it's important for me to, one, here's something that I say to myself, is nobody cares. Because in that moment, I sit there and I see all these like bing, bing, bing. I don't know how that sounded on that. If that was like super loud, sorry. But I have like all these things like pinging in my head, and then I start to like beat myself up, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you haven't done that. You're so irresponsible. Like, how are you gonna be? You have to do better. You have to do, like, I start to have like this internal negative dialogue. And then I'm like, oh God, if people could see how hard this is, they wouldn't freaking, like, I start to look at myself the way I think people are looking at me. Like, I missed a birthday party for my son's friend's birthday party this past weekend, and I felt horrible. I felt so bad because they text me about it. I was going to look at the calendar. I never ended up getting to a calendar. Then my other son ended up having a basketball game, and I totally spaced the birthday party. We went to the basketball game, and then I was like, shoot, they had a birthday party. Missed the whole thing. I text the mom, and I'm just like, she probably just thinks I'm so irresponsible, like I'm so forgetful. And I just like, I want to defend myself of like, gosh, if you guys knew how much I had on my plate and what I'm trying to do, and like I have all these things to take care of and blah 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 blah, then you guys wouldn't judge me. And it's like she never even judged me. I mean, I don't care what she judged me, whether she judged me or not is really none of my business. And so I have to let go of what I think people are thinking of me, what I think my kids are thinking of me, and I just have to focus on what I can do. And when I can like get away from that, like, man, everybody thinks that I'm a failure. Everybody thinks that I'm like dropping the ball. Like everybody thinks I'm scatterbrained or I'm irresponsible or I'm forgetful. Like everybody wants to point out all these horrible things that I do. And I want to be like, you know what I do though? And I do realize that, anyways, we're not going to get into all that because none of it matters. And I was like, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody cares about how hard it is for you. Nobody cares. What do you want? What do you want? Like, what do you want, Gentry? Do you want people to care? Do you want people to see it? Because if they see it, does that change it? No. It's never changed it. If somebody's like, man, that's a lot to carry. Or you're so strong. I love that one. Like, you're so strong. Never changed a damn thing for me. The only thing that's going to change is me actually putting in the work. So something that I've given myself or something that I've been working on is giving myself a lot of grace through that and being like, okay, if we can get 51% of the things that I need to get done, then we're at majority rules. Like if I can just like push myself to be just 51% on things that I want to get better at. Majority rules. If I can be 2/3, like 2/3 is passing grade. D, I don't care. It's passing grade. 70%. If I can get to a passing grade, like what's my metrics of like how like I'm doing things the best that I can, and I'm going to give myself grace that I'm doing the best that I can. So really pushing myself to be like, okay, I know there's 10 things that need to get done. But we're not going to focus on the 10 things. We're going to focus on what I need to do next. So like, here's my list of what I need to do. Here's what I'm going to do next. And I'm not going to focus on what's still on the list. I'm going to focus on what's next. Because if I look at the whole list, I'm going to get overwhelmed. If I'm going to look at the whole, like everything I've screwed up, I'm going to get overwhelmed. Like, okay, missed the birthday party. Dang, that sucks. I'm not going to waste any more time and energy wallowing in how pissed I am about that or how guilty I feel about that. Like I felt guilty. I texted the mom. I apologized to the twins. And now it's like, okay, I have to let that go. I have to let that energy go because it's going to cause me to miss more marks. And I don't have the time and energy to keep missing marks because I'm feeling guilty about the marks I missed yesterday. So I have to let that go and move forward in the next steps and take the next steps to be like, okay, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do next? What do I need to do to feel successful? And checking those things off really, really helps me manage the house better, manage the kids better, manage the calendar better, manage my business better. Because if I get trapped in this, like what I didn't get done energy, I start to spiral. If I get trapped in the like guilt and shame of the things I've missed energy, I'm going to spiral. But if I allow myself to forgive myself for those things and then move through them and be like, okay, what can I do today that's going to be a 51% better than what I was yesterday or 1% better, depending on how you want to look at that. Because I talk about that in like my boot camps and stuff too, the 1% better from the Atomic Habits. But what do I need to do to just show up better tomorrow? I need to get this done, and this done. Okay. I need to do this first. I need to do this. So like focusing more on what the boxes I'm checking versus the ones I missed or the ones I still need to do. And that's what we call being present. Because if I'm focusing on the ones that I missed, that's going to cause depression. If I'm focusing on the ones that I haven't checked yet, that's going to cause anxiety. If I focus on the one that I'm checking off right now, I'm staying present in the moment. So some takeaways from this episode is having that emotional awareness. Some of you, and you know who you are using your tears and your emotions to manipulate and gain control. Even if you're doing it on a subconscious level, it's something that we need to start addressing. And I No, that's really hard for some of you to hear because you're like, no, I'm really feeling emotional in that moment. I'm really feeling these feelings. Absolutely. I believe you, but the result is that you want to get what you want to get. So if you're using it as a way to manipulate the situation, I encourage you to really bring some self-awareness to that. Also, breaking the cycle of codependency. So it's really, really important for you to have that sense of autonomy in your relationship before you go into it. And I think that as a recovering alcoholic, we also are in recovery from codependency. And so I really want my partner's relationship as we conclude this. So as I conclude this episode, just a couple recaps of what we talked about. We talked about emotional awareness. Are you using your emotions in uncomfortable situations to manipulate and control the situation, even on a subconscious level? And I don't want you to beat yourself up. I don't want you to shame yourself. I don't want you to get defensive with this. I want you to truly just look at yourself and be honest with yourself that, hey, am I using my emotions in these situations because they're uncomfortable? And I'm hoping that if I cry, I might get the response that I'm wanting. Because if you're doing that, that's a little bit toxic and we need to work on that. You're not a bad person. You're not a narcissist, but let's work on that. Also, codependency. So something that's really, really important, especially in recovering alcoholics, because we tend to be also recovering codependents, is you have to have that sense of autonomy that you're okay with or without that partner. So don't get in the people pleasing burnout. Don't get in the, I want them to like me so much that I'm going to love bomb them or do whatever they want or say whatever they need me to say, or show up for them, or like in a space, show up for them in a way that it actually is disservicing myself, because that's not love. That is people pleasing, that is codependency, that is unhealthy, and that's not sustainable. So how can we get that sense of autonomy? For me personally, it's really important for me to remind myself that I am safe. I am safe with them. I am safe without them. I am safe no matter what, because I am responsible for my own safety and happiness. Also, giving yourself grace, because it is a lot. One, a lot to be working through these things, a lot to be a divorced parent, a lot to be a co-parent, a lot to be an adult in general, and we're not going to do it perfectly. The idea isn't to focus on what we haven't done and beat ourselves up with guilt and shame about that, or to focus on what we are anticipating, the things that we're afraid of doing, because that's depression, that's anxiety. We want to stay present. So focus on the things that you can do right now, literally right now. Go and write a list of things that you need to get done and stop having them run wild in your brain. Make that list, decide what you're going to do, and check them off one by one by one. For more resources on how to quit things that no longer serve you, make sure you click the link below and get subscribed to my email list, where I send out weekly emails helping you guys quit things that are no longer serving you. Back to my favorite quitters.